Hello, and welcome to Sobercast, where we provide AA speaker meetings and workshops in podcast format. We're an ad-free podcast, and if you enjoy listening, please help us be self-supporting by visiting Sobercast.com, look for the donate link, and drop $1 or $2 into our virtual basket. We hope you enjoy the podcast. Have a great day.
My name is Geraldine. I'm an alcoholic and an addict. Welcome to all the newcomers. I was a newcomer for 7 years on and off, and I don't recommend it. I recommend it's better to come to AA and stay, but I was not able to do it. And I learned a lot. I now have 1 year. I have over 1 year. I work my steps with a sponsor that I really like. I really respect her. She's very patient. I usually meet her on Sunday morning or Monday evening. And my first year, I cried every morning when I met her. Every morning, every Sunday morning, I cried. And I thought all the time that she was going to tell me I can't do it anymore, because I was a mess. I was a total mess my first year, and she stayed. So my goal is to be like her and to help other alcoholics and addicts, and to have her dedication and patience. Anyway, I'm French. I grew up in a very violent household. My mom was a drunk. She still drinks. My biological dad, he was a big drunk. And my parents were not happy, so they were not very. It was not very happy. Well, it was never happy at home. It was very sad. There was never any encouragement. It was always, actually they didn't even mention anything. And when they did, it was never good enough, or I could have done better. And I learned at a very young age that I didn't matter, and then what I was always doing was wrong. I learned how to feel very negative and being very depressed. I'm dressed in black, but it's because I had nothing else. I'm not depressed anymore, not like that. I realized when I was like, I have to tell all these people that I used to be depressed, and I'm dressed in black. But I'm better. I learned, I started to have panic attacks, a lot of anxiety, being stressed out at a very young age. My parents sent me see a shrink. I was very young, and my mother wouldn't tell the doctor that she had a drinking problem, so it was always like, yeah, my daughter is not normal. Look at her. And my mom was totally normal. I mean, she was drunk, but she was absolutely normal. It's funny now to look at my childhood, because I think it's funny. But when I was growing up, when I was a teenager, when I was 20, it was not funny at all. And it's only actually less than a year ago, when I had my first year, that I forgave my mom. I held a grudge for like 25 years. Anyways, I was not drinking a lot. It came later, but I have to watch. What happened is that I was very depressed. And I never knew where to put myself, very anxious. I didn't have any friends. I listened to the Smiths a lot, and I read books. Yeah. And I read books. I only had my world, and I wasn't able to connect with other person my age. At school, I was always alone. I was anxious. I hated myself. So I started my parents were very politically engaged, and when we grew up, we would we would be in communes, in Poland, for example. So when we would fly there, I was so freaked out in the planes that, my dad would give me alcohol and my mom would give me Valium. And I knew at a very young age that it was working. Yeah. Because I would pass out. And it was actually very normal. 40 years ago, giving alcohol, in France, giving alcohol or pills to a child, I don't think it was bad. People did it. So anyways, I wouldn't recommend it either. It's only, I think when I was 20, my grandma, my grandpa, my boyfriend, and my father died, and I lost my shit, and I said, fuck it, and I had a breast cancer. So, I really said, fuck it. And, I started to hate myself even more. I didn't know how to self-care. The anxiety was there and I had no reassurance around me. So I was just very depressed. The only thing that worked was getting drunk, and that I knew how to get drunk. Taking pills. I used to steal them from my mom or my grandma, and I always carried them with me. Even when I would go out to bars, I didn't talk to people. I didn't really relate to anything. I was just like in my own world, and I felt that I was in a body that I didn't understand, and in a world that was way too crazy, way too sad, and I started to react very, very, very strongly to things. I never felt enough. I never felt good enough. I never felt smart enough, skinny enough, all these things. I never felt enough, and I felt too much. I was never in the middle. And for me, that was a big problem all my life. And actually, my therapist and my sponsor helped me to, when I feel so negative, I know now how to breathe, how to sit down, how to be alone with myself, how to pray, how to meditate. He's going to tell me 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. How to pray, and I still listen to the Smiths, and it's really helpful. It's helpful now. I just want to say that I came a long way, and that I really thought I would never have 1 year because I was such a mess. Even when I came to AA, I was like, these people have their shit together compared to me. I was still shoplifting. I was still acting out. I was still violent. I was still doing all these things because I hated myself so much. And it's only last Christmas that, it's in October last year that, I was like, Geraldine, if you go out now and you don't have 1 year, you're never going to do it. So I spent Christmas alone last year. I went to see a movie alone, and I forced myself, and I told myself, you have to do it now. If you don't stay sober now, you will never do it. You have tried everything to stay sober. So it's a miracle I stayed sober, but I called people. I went to Rockbridge Fellowship, and people were nice enough to stay with me. I think I had dinner, lunch there. I went to 5 meetings a day, and I kept doing that. And when the pain was too big inside, when it was too painful, I kept going back to meetings, and I listened. For the first time, I listened to what people had to say to me. And when people wanted to help me, then I didn't tell them to fuck off, but I actually listened. And I learned so much. I learned everything I know. I know it from here, working the steps. I work my step very, very slowly. I don't know why. I write a lot. You can ask my husband. I write all the time, but I'm only on step 4, so I feel I know nothing. But I feel I can tell the newcomers that if you feel awkward like me, or if you feel like you never know where to put yourself, or if you feel ugly, fat, lame, stupid, you don't have to. you will get better. And trust me, I'm the living proof that you can get better, because I was the biggest mess ever. And I'm actually happy now. I don't know, I have bad days. You can also ask my husband. I cry a lot still, but it's better. And I surround myself with a lot of nice people, a lot of people that are that think positive, and I'm learning how to think positive and to change my behavior and my thinking. Is it time? So if you're a newcomer, don't be discouraged, because really I've been a newcomer for 7 years and I know how much it hurts. But you can get better, because I'm better. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Ashley. I'm an alcoholic. I've never talked in front of a room of people this long ever, so I'm really nervous. All right. What I was like, I'm trying to think. Growing up, I was a high school accident. My parents worked at the movie theater together. I was most likely conceived during Top Gun. Thanks for telling me, Mom. But yeah, my mom is also programmed for over 20 years now, but I'm older than that. So I grew up in split households. Both my parents were super young, so it wasn't like I was back and forth between mom and dad. It was like I was back and forth between mom, dad, grandma, aunt, uncle over there, like some friend. And so I just remember my entire childhood kind of, I was a very weird kid, super weird. All I did was read. I didn't have friends. I just wanted to learn, so I did good in school, but other than that, like, I was super isolated. And I just remember having this keen awareness of feeling like a burden. Like, from even, like, age 8, I just remember feeling like I can't speak up if I need something, and just that I had to take care of myself because no one else was going to. And, you know, I remember when I got to high school, it kind of, you hit that point where you start becoming more aware of the world around you. And I remember for me, that time was extremely difficult. Like, my adolescence, consisted of a lot of outside issues. You know, I struggled really, really hard with eating disorders, like self-mutilation, stuff like that for a few years. And, you know, I went through a lot of programs, a lot of them didn't work, and finally, like, went through one where I thought, you know, some issues were getting resolved, but, like, in retrospect, I'm looking at it, and it's like, or you picked up your first drink, which is exactly what happened. So I kind of got a late start for a lot of people, and I didn't pick up my first drink till I was 16, but what I do know is that the first time I ever drank, I had 4 beers, and I was maybe like $1.10. And I remember that I was pissed that there wasn't more, and I knew it did something, but I knew that it was nowhere near where it could take me, and I wanted to get there as fast as possible. So I was kind of sheltered. Like, I went to a private all-girls school, so it, like, took me a while to find the alcohol, and then, boom, I was off and running. Like, within 6 months, like, you know, I was doing anything.
It's my time.
I was doing anything I could get my hands on, or that someone would hand me. You know, I wouldn't even ask. Like, I was totally one of those, like, so what is that going to do to me? Yeah, so, you know, I don't know how I passed high school. I mean, kind of. Like, I was one of those kids that I'd be, like, doing lines off my chemistry book, doing my homework at, like, 4 a.m. Like, that's how I passed high school. And there's always this really intense drive in me that I wanted to learn. I wanted to be educated. Like, I chose to go to a girls' school because I didn't want distractions. And I was very driven, but that all kind of went down the toilet once I started using. You know, I was on the rowing team and I was doing really well, and we were going to go to like the Junior Olympics and stuff. And then I couldn't do it anymore because it interfered with my drinking and my using, and I just couldn't do it. So I quit, you know, and that was the first like instance of quitting, was right away. And I don't know, but I graduated somehow and got accepted to UC Santa Cruz. So I remember that summer between high school and college was like, took off for me. I was drinking every single night, all night. I don't know if I have the pleasure or the displeasure of not being a blackout drinker. I distinctly remember all of it, everything I did, all the time. So that was like the first real time that like in my life where I started to notice like that it was affecting like what people think of me and how they see me, and that didn't line up with how I viewed myself in my head. And it really started to mess with me a lot, but I just kind of hit this point where like I just kind of embraced it. Like I knew I couldn't stop the behavior, so instead I internalized that like, yeah, that's just who I am. I'm a crazy drunk and like I don't give a shit about anything. But like that wasn't true. That's not who I am. I cared a lot. But there was nothing, I wasn't going to change my drinking. It didn't matter. That I could see the effects already in terms of like who I was hanging out with, and even that's what those people think of me. Jesus, you know? And yeah, so I went to college, and I remember my dad just like praying the entire time when he dropped me off. And yeah, he should have prayed harder. Yeah, it only took a year, and I was asked not to live there. And then I was asked just to leave. So I didn't know what I was doing. So I had some friends in the city. So I just took off and moved in with someone I knew in San Francisco, and did whatever I wanted all the time. And you know, I started to get like pretty crazy at this point. Like I would do just like crazy stuff. I just didn't really care. I would just go with the flow and do anything, and I get like stranded places, and like I wouldn't learn though. I wouldn't learn that like maybe you shouldn't just like take off because like the end destination sounds fun when like you don't have any money or way to get back or anything. And you know, so I did a lot of weird stuff. Like I like ran away with a street magician to New Orleans, and like, I like followed a girl halfway around the world to Guam and like lived there for 6 months and didn't tell anyone until I was already there. And yeah, and it was just like, well, that was cool though, because I was 19 and the drinking age was 18, so that was awesome. Yeah, so then I kind of hit this like point where things started to kind of look okay on the outside. Like I came back from Guam on vacation, and instead decided that I was moving in with my waiter when I was out to dinner in San Francisco. And that's exactly what I did. I moved in with my waiter. And I held that one hostage for 3 years. And like during those 3 years, like it kind of looked okay on the outside. Like I was going to community college, and I was and, you know, I was in a stable, steady relationship, what it looked like on the outside. And I had a job that I showed up on time to and worked really hard at. And that's what it looked like on the outside. But on the inside, it was like the reason why I was attracted to this person, the reason why I like... Oh, sponsy. And the reason why I was attracted to this person was because they drank and used like I did. I was like, yeah, you're like 12 years older than me, have your own apartment, and like still get fucked up like I do. That's what's up. And yeah, and so I did that for a really long time. And then I think I was 23. I was 23, and I finally kind of realized that, like, it isn't normal to, like, do blow 5 times a week. Like, that's not something that just, you know, you like to party. And that was the first, and there were lots of signs. And I mean, I had lots of instances during my using, like when I was in group therapy and they're like, we want to diagnose you with this thing. And I was like, I think I just can't quit doing drugs, but I keep trying, actually. And no one suggested that I, like, seek treatment or anything. And then again in college, when I had like a page and a half of write-ups due to alcohol and drug use on campus, and no one said anything to me. And even my mom just kind of let me figure it out on my own. And, you know, but this was the first time in my life where I was like, I think something's wrong. I think something's really wrong, and I'm trying to quit and I can't. Every day I would wake up and be like, I'm not going to do drugs today. I'm just not going to do it today. And, you know, the second I left the house to go to work, because I was working at a bar, like, I was like, oh, there's my dealer at the end of the bar. I'm going to get some drugs. And this just went on and went on and went on. And I couldn't figure out what was wrong. I didn't have any idea of how to change it. And so I decided that it was him. He was the problem. So I thought maybe if I distance myself from this relationship, like, I'll figure it out. I'll straighten up a little bit. And that's not what happened. I moved out, and within a month, I got fired from 2 jobs that you were actually encouraged to drink at for my drinking. That's how much of a drunk I was. Like, I worked at, like, a bar where they're like, I worked at 2 bars where they were like, yeah, no, get customers to buy you shots. And they were like, whoa, you're really good at that, but you're not supposed to actually drink all of them when you're that good at it. And I didn't listen. You know, I couldn't take advice. Like, I would try so hard to, like, absorb what people are telling me and, like, actually execute their suggestions. But when it came to, like, my drinking, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. And so I got fired from 2 jobs within a month, had some other really gnarly things happen that, I think it wasn't like my bottom was like this slow descent or like this, really abrupt thing. It was just like 9 months straight of like awful shit happening over and over and over again, like traumatic events. And it finally ended with basically, like, I decided, even though I was doing a lot of shady stuff, that I should date this cop I met at work. And that was not actually using good decision making. And yeah, not on my part. So I don't think either of our parts, actually. But yeah, and so this was like kind of the final blow for me. It was like this person was like, I think you're doing all the shady stuff. And I was like, yeah, I am. And it got crazy and it got violent and it really fucked me up really bad. And I just, I was already so low emotionally that like this really just set me off. And I was really scared. And I didn't know I got to that point where like I can't tell the true from the false. I don't know what's good, what's bad, who's bad. I don't know if I'm good. And I just had no idea what to do about this situation that was causing me so much internal difficulties. And I just remember I was sitting at this bar around the corner from my house and I was just drinking and drinking and drinking and drinking and drinking. And I'm not a blackout drinker. So I'm drinking and drinking and drinking, and not even for 5 seconds could I check out and forget about this traumatic experience. And that was it. It was like, that was the moment that it stopped working for me. And that was the only solution I had to life. Like, no matter what, the bottle was always going to be there for me, right? And it wasn't. It didn't hold up its end of the bargain. And in that moment, I decided, all right, well, you know what? There's nothing left here for me. And I went home, and I was frantically trying to look up directions to the Golden Gate Bridge and getting crazy because my smartphone wouldn't tell me how to get there at 11 p.m. on a Monday. And I was like throwing things, and my roommate came in and kind of cornered me and was like, what is going on? And I told her my plan was that I was going to go jump off the bridge right now. And, she was very cool about it. She was just like, oh, well, I mean, would you like to get committed? And I was like, oh, whoa, that's actually a good idea. Like, maybe I should take 72 hours to think about this real quick. And, so she got me into some sweatpants and, like, cut off the string and, like, all this stuff. She's like, I know how this goes. And, went and dropped me off. And, so I did that, and they immediately decided to pump me full of Ativan, and that was awesome. And, I don't even remember calling anyone, but apparently I called my stepdad, and I kind of told him what happened, and my mom shows up when I'm supposed to be released, and she's, like, super hysterical. She's hysterical, obviously. She's hysterical. Like, I was about to kill myself, and now I'm in a mental institution. And I just remember, like, I told the people working there, like, I can't deal with her right now. She's gonna set off my panic attacks again, and, like, there's only so much drugs can do for me right now. And I remember, like, and this was the day after St. Patrick's Day. And so my friend was coming to pick me up, but they were taking a while. They were pretty hungover. And so I just remember pushing past my hysterical mother so that I could get in a car with my friend so that I could get fucked up again. That's what I did. And, and we were like, finally my mom agreed. My mom got me to agree to meet at her house. And at that point, I had like 3 nicotine patches on because the nurse forgot to take them off. And then I was smoking a pack of cigarettes at the same time. And I had immediately popped another Ativan the second they released me, obviously. And like my friend was hungover and we're like trying to find my house and we're just like, we had to pull over and we were both just vomiting out of either side of this vehicle. And like, that was my life at that point. And, my mom finally convinced me to get in the fucking car. And, we're driving back down to San Jose, which is where I grew up. And she was like, you're moving home and you're going to get sober. And, I just didn't have any more angles to shoot at that point. I don't know why I said okay, but I did. And, the next night she took me to my first meeting, of Alcoholics Anonymous, and, it was the speaker meeting, and so we went up to, like, the speaker afterwards, and my mom asked if I could have her number, and instead she threw a book at me, told me she was my sponsor, that I was supposed to text her 3 things I'm grateful for tomorrow, and that I was meeting her at Starbucks at noon. And I was like, oh, okay, well, like, let me ask my mom if she can drive me, because I haven't had a car in, like, 7 years, for the best. And, and that's what happened. So I met this woman at, Starbucks at noon the next day. And, she just looked at me and was like, are you fucking high right now? And I was like, no, it's cool. It's because, the doctor gave it to me. And she was like, no, I'm not going to fucking sponsor you if you're high. So either throw them out or like, I'm not going to sponsor you. And I don't know why. I can tell you this right now. I didn't know. And if you're new in here and you're questioning like anything about whether you want to be here or if you even want sobriety or anything like that, I can tell you right now, like, I had no idea if I wanted to be sober. A lot of me didn't want to be sober. I had no idea what I was doing. But, oh, jeez. Hold on. Okay, I'm actually chairing a speaker meeting right now. I am gonna call you right back as soon as I'm done. Okay? Okay, bye. Alright, let's go to my general rule. Sponsi calls you 3 times in a row, you answer. Don't get bloated. Alright, oh man. Okay, yeah, so I didn't know. In fact, a lot of me didn't want to stay sober, but I had to go to court. And I was like, I stayed sober at someone. You want to know the truth? I stayed sober at a stupid cop. That's what I did. And, so I had to go to court, and I was like, I'm just gonna do this thing so that I can stay sober until I go to court. And, and that was, I threw out the pills, and I met this woman, and that's what happened for me. And I know this isn't a lot of people's story, and, I mean, fuck, but that's my story, is, I went to my first meeting, got a sponsor, got a book, met with them, threw out my drugs, and started working the steps. And I haven't had to have a drink or use a drug since, and that was March 21st of 2011. And, I started working the steps, and it was at someone. People say, like, oh, you can't get sober, like, for someone else, or for some outside reason, like, it has to be for yourself. And, like, I'm gonna tell you, like, not at first it doesn't. Eventually it has to be for you, but not at first. No. Because I stayed sober at someone. Fuck that guy. And, I just kept saying, like, oh, I'm just gonna be sober until this date. I'm just gonna be, and then, my court date gets deferred, and so I have to go back. So I'm like, well, I'm gonna show up sober to that one too. And so that's kind of how it went. And, next thing you know, it was like, I was gonna have major surgery 4 days after my final court date, and I was like, I was going to meetings every day. I did 90 and 90, because that's what someone told me to do. And it was right around this point that I realized my sponsor was not the one for me. And so that was my first sponsor was my temporary sponsor, and I found someone who worked for me because I was ready to drop my fifth. I was like, I want to do this because this is the most stressful thing I've ever done, is go to this court date where I actually have to go through with the thing, and then I'm having major head and neck surgery again. And so I dropped my fifth, and I got out of that court, that court session, and it was like, all right, well, you're about to get a prescription for drugs, because they're going to rip your face open and then put it back together. Do you want to get loaded? You said you could get loaded after this court date. Is that what you want to do? And I didn't, and I really didn't want to. Like, I already saw how my life was changing, how my relationships with my family and my friends had changed, and also that terrifying feeling of, like, not being able to tell the true from the false, like, that was changing. I was getting a better grasp on, like, what was reality, because I had no idea what reality was when I got into the rooms. And I decided I didn't want to, and I had surgery, and, like, I had someone hold on to my drugs, and I took them as prescribed as needed for pain. And yeah, that was, my first few months. And, how much time is this? Oh my good Lord. It's a lot of time left. All right. So yeah. And, I don't know. I kind of go hard, like, sometimes. So, like, when I first got sober, like, I had moved back to San Jose, I had nothing to my name, and, like, enrolled for school and started attending, like, 4 days later. So I had, like, 3 days when I went back to school. But obviously I had no idea what I was doing. I was just taking whatever looked fun, because I was like, that's what you do, right? You just go back to school. And so I did that for a minute, and then I was like, and things were all right. Like, good things started happening to me. Like, I had a car for the first time in 7 years, and like, it was in my name, the title. I paid for it myself, and I had a job, and I didn't like it, but I showed up, and I was going to school, and I was just kept going to meetings, and like, I was making friends, and I'll never forget the first time when I was sober that I realized that I could have fun, because for me, when I came in, I really just was resigned to the fact that, like, I was never going to have fun again. My life was going to be boring. I was going to be boring, which was, frankly, kind of terrifying for me. But I was like, you know what? That's better. It's better. I'd rather have that than the life I'm living. And I remember the first time I had fun. It was the typical young people kidnapping, where they were just like, get in the car. And I got in the car, and, like, we went to Santa Cruz, and we went to the tide pools at Natural Bridges, and I remember it was just that simple. It was just that simple of, like, wow, these people are, like, trying to hang out with me. Like, they remembered my name, and they called me, and they showed up, because, like, that's what we do here. We remember your name, and we call you, and we show up. And I remember that was the moment where it changed, where I was like, maybe I can actually have a good life if I just keep doing this thing instead of a boring, humdrum, but I don't want to kill myself all the time life. And, and so good things started happening. Like, I got some prizes, in the car. I was going back to school. I got some inheritance, and I went to Europe, and it was all fancy and stuff, and it was awesome. And finally, after like 2 years, I remember, oh my gosh, I was so freaked out because I was going to go back to UC Santa Cruz and try and see if I could go back. And I remember I had no idea what I was doing. I was so terrified of this moment. And I had a little over 2 years, and I remember driving there just being terrified. So terrified. Like, what if they tell me they don't ever want to see me again? Like, I have no idea. Like, they told me to leave on multiple terms. And, I went in, and they were like, it happened to be drop-in advising, and I went and talked to someone, and they were like, oh, literally, you just need to, like, fill out this form and turn it into this office over there and pay them $25. And at that point, I realized, wow, how much else is, like, my fear getting in the way of me accomplishing in terms of things I want to do with my life. And so that was the beginning of a really long journey that thankfully just ended like 3 weeks ago. But yeah, so that was like 2.5 years ago. I went back to college, and it was really, really good at first. But I was going way too hard. Like, I was working full time, and I was going to school, and I was doing like art and theater, which means I'm just stuck there all the time. And like, my phone didn't get service because UC Santa Cruz like in the woods. And so I couldn't even like talk to another alcoholic, even though I was stuck there for like 14 hours a day, 5 days a week. And I was kind of starting to go a little nuts. But eventually, basically what forced me to slow down was I found out that I had another tumor, but that this time it wasn't benign and it was cancerous. And so I was going to have to, thank goodness, I didn't have to go through chemo, but I did have to do radiation. So that was the hardest thing I've been through sober, definitely. It's been a year since I finished treatment, but my whole world kind of stopped, and my whole world got really, really small. In terms of my sobriety, it kind of like, it was hard because it was so difficult for me, and I didn't want to open up. I didn't feel safe. I felt really unsafe, and trying to go to meetings, but I didn't want to, it's kind of funny. So like, I actually got permission from my sponsor to stop talking to newcomers for a little while, because I couldn't lie. So people would ask me how I was doing, and I was like, fucking terrible. And they're like, well, have you prayed about it today? And I would be like, yeah, I did, but praying doesn't cure cancer, so thanks a lot. Like, you too can have this at 4 years. You too. And I was like, whoa, like, I think this is damaging me and other people. Can I just not do this right now? And, that was my life. And that was the thing, was I was just so like, am I spiritually fit? And I kept doing the checklist. I was like, I'm talking to my sponsees. Like, I'm working steps with my sponsor. I'm working steps with my sponsees. Like, I'm going to meetings and like, I'm praying and I'm meditating and like, I'm doing my best. And that was just where I was at. It was like, I really had to acknowledge and accept the fact that like, I'm just really, really fucked off. And I'm doing everything I possibly can to stay sober and be spiritually fit. And that I just need to accept that I'm like really unhappy right now. And that's it. And that's just where I'm at. And it was really hard. It was really hard. So I got sober with Santa Clara County. So I ended up going to the All California Conference for Young People in AA when it was in Redding. And I was there with Santa Clara County's YPAW group, and they won the bid for the conference. And I don't know why. I had just had surgery and I was waiting to start radiation. And I don't know why, but I put myself out there, and like, I don't know why people voted me in, but they did, probably because they didn't know. And so, yeah, I had a commitment, whereas the entertainment officer, I was like an officer on this committee to plan this conference for like 3,000 fucking people while I was going through radiation therapy. And that was so gnarly. And I wanted to quit so many times. So many times. Because I finished radiation therapy and went back to school 2 weeks later. I don't know why I did, except I go hard. I go hard on everything, sober or loaded. And I just knew, like, I pretty much trickled down my meetings because I didn't feel safe anywhere, and like, I knew I needed to keep this commitment. I just need to show up every other week and, do this thing, and I front loaded all my and I back loaded everything. And I just said, all right, we're just going to keep it. We're just going to keep showing up. Even though we really want to quit right now. And I can honestly say that, like, that service commitment is why I'm standing here today. Because when I finished treatment, it wasn't like I was just physically worn down. Like, it left me to the bone, physically, mentally, and spiritually at fucking nothing. And, every day I woke up and it was like, okay, you have 3 options today. You can kill yourself, get loaded, or just try going to school just for today. And every day I kept being like, let's just go to school. You can always get drunk or kill yourself tomorrow. And that's what I did every day for 9 months. And you know what? I didn't have a higher power either during that time. And that was a really hard thing for me to deal with, was that I had this idea that Alcoholics Anonymous told me that without one, I can't stay sober. And that was not true for me. I didn't have a higher power. And I just kept showing up and doing everything that was suggested to me. And I got to stay here and find a new happiness and a new freedom without one. And the only thing that really got me through that, though, was faith. Because I just had this faith that, like, this is temporary. This is temporary. Even though you're not okay right now, you're really not, and you really should seek outside help. Eventually you will be. And, I just kept going with that. I just kept having faith that, like, I will be okay as long as I stay in the middle of this, and as long as I keep doing what I know got me sober. And that's what I did. And you know what? It changes. It always changes. And right when I was at the point where I was like, I don't know how much longer I can keep going like this. I can't keep doing this that much longer. Fucking can it change already? You know, and that moment of surrender for me was really like when it started to change. That's usually how it goes for me. I can rail against my life all I fucking want, and the second I just throw my hands up and like, fucking something needs to happen, and it's not gonna be from me, obviously, it changes. And yeah, I just graduated college. What the fuck? And let me just tell you, 10-year plan, still a plan. Okay? And like, I have trouble making decisions. 1 minute? Okay. I have trouble making decisions and I have trouble taking risks. And you know what? Sometimes you just need to trust and believe. And I made a huge decision recently that's terrifying to me. And I decided to sell everything I own, which I just did, and I'm getting on a plane in a week and a half, and I'm going to New Orleans, and I'm moving there, and this time I'm not running away, because I did the work that this program taught me to do to figure out what I want and how to get there. And this is a huge leap of faith that I'm making, and I'm terrified and excited. And that's the last thing I'm going to say is like the only way you walk through fear is scared as shit. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Sobercast is ad-free, and we'd like your help in order to keep it that way. So if you'd like to help us be self-supporting by pledging $1 or $2 a month, visit Sobercast.com and look for the donate links. Thank you very much.